Let us gather our hearts in our hopes for peace. Now let us listen to Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, performed by John Cale.
Good morning and welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Prescott, Arizona. I'm Kelsey Wilkes, your worship associate today. We extend a warm welcome to all, and we are glad you were able to join us, and we hope you are in good health. We want to stay connected, so please join us for the breakout rooms after the service. This will give us time to chat with congregants in small groups. Reverend Becky Gunn will remain in the main Zoom room after the service for greetings and discussion. If you're joining us for the first time, please check out our website for more information, prescottuu.org. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. We extend our thanks to all who contributed to the presentation of our service today. Heather Knowles for technical direction, Lena Hubin for our piano accompaniment, the Granite Peak worship team, and we welcome back our guest speaker, Reverend Becky Gunn. After a 30-year career in business, Reverend Gunn chose to go to Starr King School of Ministry to become a UU minister. She did her internship in Albany, New York as an intern ministry in Boulder, Colorado. And her called ministry for 6 years was in Bangor, Maine, where she became Minister Emerita in 2014. Her focus in ministry was spiritual growth associated with social justice. She retired to Prescott in 2015, and I have known Becky since 2017 when I joined AAUW. I'm thrilled she's back with us today. Although we are physically apart, we are still in community, and we continue with some of our meetings and activities virtually. So please continue to check the weekly peak, our website, and Reverend Patty's videos for announcements. And you can join our weekly Zoom meetings, Together Wednesday Forum, Wednesday afternoon storytelling, and Friday lunch with our minister. You will find connection information and other announcements in the order of service. Children's Faith Development is back. It will be today at 11:30 via Zoom. Contact Bev Ostrom to get connected. I want to give a special shout out to our virtual empty bowls. A very creative team has been putting in hours and hours of work to assure the 23rd year of Empty Bowls continues, even during a pandemic. Please go to the website, purchase a bowl or bid on an art auction item, purchase an opportunity to win our 50/50 or a restaurant gift certificate. Join our educational panel on September 8th and listen to the special music written and performed by local artist Greg and the Gringos. And now we have a special video message from Red Manning.
Good morning, Granite Peakers. It is with joy and sorrow that I'm announcing today that I'm leaving my position of Social Justice Coordinator at Granite Peak to step into a job based out of Tucson. So I'll be leaving Granite Peak in September and leaving Prescott at the end of December. So I just want to say I'm so grateful to have been in community with you all the last couple years. And I'll still be in Arizona. I'll still be in the same movement with you all. And I really believe that whoever steps into this position next will bring necessary new perspectives. And I have so much hope and faith for you all to grow and continue to take courageous steps towards a more just world. The justice work here has never been mine alone. I played a role, but it's been all of ours together. And I hope you hold that and know that is true and feel really great about the beautiful role that you all play in this ministry work, and how much you've taught me. I've learned so much. So Patty and I are going to do a service together next week. And other than that, I just want to say thank you, and I love you. And I hope you have a beautiful day.
We will miss Wren, and we are deeply appreciative for all they have brought to Granite Peak and our work for social justice.
As we traditionally begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition by lighting a chalice, let us listen to the words of Eleanor Roosevelt. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. As we light this flame, know that as we move forward, that we can move forward regardless of obstacles. It will not be easy, nor will it be quick. As a beloved community, we can do so much more than we think we can do. We are gathered here virtually to consider our journey in difficult times. The words of the poem Heart Labor by Maggie Anderson are relevant to our message today. When I work too hard and then lie down, even my sleep is sad and all worn out. You want me to name the specific sorrow? They do not matter. You have your own. Most of the people in the world go out to work day after day with their voices chained in their throats. I am swimming a narrow, swift river. Upstream, the clouds have already darkened and deep blue holes I cannot see churn up under the smooth, flat rocks. The Greeks have a word, parapono, for the complaint without answer, for how the heart labors while all the time our faces appear calm enough to float through in the moonlight. Yes, we all have our sorrows and our challenges. All of those challenges are unique to you and to each of us. We often don't tell others those difficulties. We hide them, seeking to resolve them. And in our trying to resolve those hurdles, we may lose hope. But it is in our resolve that we can rise and hope again. Let us join in singing our first hymn. The words will be on the screen. The hymn is number 121, We'll Build a Land.
Thank you, Lena. Now, please join me as we say our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together.
For our joys and sorrows today, we will ring our chime 3 times. Our first is in memory of all those who have gone before us, those who have lit our way through their strength. The second is for those of us here today seeking, searching for deeper meaning in our journey together. The third is for all those who continue to carry on the light of our faith community through vision, resolve, and love. Now please sing these words of comfort.
To this musical interlude, take a moment to embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. Since this is the 5th Sunday in August, we will be giving to the beautification of Granite Peak's building and grounds. To give during this distance time, please go to prescottuu.org, or on the bottom left-hand side, click the word donate to contribute. The link is also available in the chat on this Zoom. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be. And now I will do a reading called The Beads of Life from Nancy Woods. The space between events is where most of life is lived. Those half-remembered moments of joy or sadness, fear or disappointment are merely beads of life strung together to make one expanding necklace of experience. The space between events is where we grow old. From sunrise to sunset, one day lives as another day emerges from the fluid womb of dawn, the first bead strung upon the everlasting thread of life. The space between events is where knowledge marries beauty. In quiet reflection, we remember only the colored outlines of events, the black and white of war, the rosiness that surrounded our first love. The space between events is why we go on living. The laughter of a child or the sigh of wind in a canyon becomes the music we hear, expanding in our hearts each time we gather. One more bead of life.
Live in turbulent times. You know this. I'm not telling you something you don't know. We sometimes feel helpless. We sometimes feel angry. We may feel so very discouraged that we may just think, it is what it is, so why do anything? I'm here today to acknowledge that despair. But I'm also here to speak of how this time can also be positively transformative for you, for me, for our community. Transformation often begins in the darkest of times. And sometimes that transformation begins when we resolve to begin again by looking deeply at what our lives mean. Then we determine how to focus on that meaning and do what we can to augment that meaning. Sometimes in the darkness, we are hopeless, but somehow we hold on. We resolve to hold on, to not let the negative forces in our journey overwhelm us. In this sort of netherworld without hope, we are called to do what we may feel we cannot do, but we do it nevertheless. I want to begin this message today by telling a true story from a small book by Clarissa Pinkola Estes entitled The Faithful Gardener. Estes was a storyteller and a Jungian analyst who focused on archetypes. Many of you may know her and her work through a book, Woman Who Run with the Wolves. She has a way of telling truth that is powerful and filled with relevant metaphor. The tale is about a war-ravaged Uncle Zovar who arrives from Europe after World War II. This man, a peasant from Hungary, had been incarcerated in a prison camp by the Nazis and had managed to survive. Estes' foster father managed to arrange for passage to America for this uncle to come and live with their family. Estes relates, "For a long time, our small house was filled with many people who had just come from war and back from the dead. They carried hundreds of horrific images and losses that cannot be described in words alone. In each of our people who had suffered so greatly, there were two struggling persons, one living the life of the New World, the other constantly running from memories of hell that rose up and gave chase. But there were also times of great peace. Uncle knew the land like he knew the lines on his face, like he knew the veins on the back of his hands. As we walked one day, Uncle mused, 'I have heard people ask, where is the Garden of Eden? Ha! Anywhere we stand on this earth, we are standing right in the Garden of Eden. This entire earth, underneath its rail tracks and highways, under its worn coat, under its rubble, under all these is God's garden, still as fresh as the day it was created. It is true that in many places, Eden is covered over and forgotten, but she can be made whole again. Wherever there is worn ground, misused or unused ground, Eden is still right beneath. And over time, living with the land, Uncle's wandering spirit, chased out of him by so much war, began to hover near him again. And little by little, Uncle began to grow back into one person instead of two. All was well and growing green again until there came a certain day. It began well enough in the morning, but by early evening, all hell had broken loose. The State Road Commission sent officials down to announce that the state would annex land belonging to the people. The state would build a toll road through the quiet woodlands where we lived. They would annex entire forests and fields, these essentials that were the healing grounds for the war-torn, the land on which people grew their summer and winter food, the hide and seek places of children. For ever so many, these lands were the rest and repair of their souls. Uncle stood up and shouted, "What is annex? You mean steal. You steal from us." Several frightened family members jostled Uncle out and tried to calm him. The entire village reeled in dismay. For Uncle and other refugee immigrants of our family and those of our many war-torn neighbors, these events were terrifyingly close to the deep travails they had endured during the war. Uncle Zovar went temporarily mad. The first day the bulldozers came, Uncle railed and stomped through the fields, shaking his fist at the earth movers far off in the distance. Everyone in the community prayed for the road commission to come to their senses, for the bureaucrats to change their plans, but it was not meant to be. Every day the earth movers came, and every day they bleated and whined and ground, cutting down and through the prime forests and farmlands. One morning, we heard Uncle outside and the sounds of hoes and rakes clashing and clattering. He cried, "I am doing something. I am doing something." He seized two enormous shovels, and everyone cried, "No, Zovar, put the shovels down. What are you doing? Do not do anything rash, Zovar." But Uncle did not answer. He marched toward the fields with a shovel on either shoulder. All morning he dug in a small parcel of what was left of a larger field after the roadbed had been cut through. Uncle dug deeply around the perimeter of the field. He dug and shoveled and shoveled and dug. Various neighborhood men interrupted their own work to come down and see what Uncle Zovar was doing. They returned later with shovels and pickaxes to help. By afternoon, there was a trench that ran along the edge, about 2 cubits wide and 1/2 of 1 hectare. Night fell. Uncle trudged home and ate a big meal. Then he left the house, carrying an old dented red bucket brimming with fuel. There in the field, in the completely windless night, he carefully poured the fuel along the field on 2 sides and once down the middle. The field erupted in blaze. The next day, the field was still smoking, but fire dead. With his razor-sharp hoe, Uncle skinned back blackened roots and stubble here and there, thereby exposing the earth even more. So, you see, Uncle said, this burning and blackening of the soil here, so much will come of it, so much that you will not believe it. Will you seed here, I asked. No, replied Zovar. We need to make the land hospitable. And if you seed the land, trees will not grow. Do you know how to make trees grow? As wild and beautiful as any as you have ever seen? You leave the land hospitable. How do you do that? It's not a surprise. As for a guest, first you put out water. Well, and next you put out sun and some shade, and lastly, you leave the ground fallow. What does that mean? It means you leave it turned, but unsown. It means you send it through fire in order to prepare it for new life. Fire comes, though we are afraid it comes anyway, sometimes by accident, sometimes on purpose, sometimes for reason no one understands. But fire can also turn everything to a new direction, a new and different life, one that has its own strengths and ways to shape the world. And so it came to be that over time, this field, opened by burning, this field, shallow and waiting, drew just the right strangers, just the right seeds to itself. In all due time, tiny trees began to appear. The oaks came, the white pines came, the red and silver maples came. To Uncle, these trees were like young people, alive and courting and dancing again. He was ever so joyous, and so was I. Over a long period of time, for hardwoods grow slowly, there grew up a small forest and thick ground cover. 45 years passed through us. Uncle stayed alive for many, his long life attributed to, I believe, an immutable and faithful force that moves all human beings toward new life, no matter what fire has taken them down. This small story is a metaphor about how we transform our lives, our communities. We, after tragedy, after being devastated, our own souls barren, we can welcome new life. We do so by opening ourselves to new strangers, to new ideas, to new seeds, and in time, we can create our own metaphoric Garden of Eden. There are so many things today that reflect the bureaucracies which plow through our lives. Racial injustice, COVID-19, systemic poverty, climate change, gun violence. I could go on for much longer. And for many of these, we feel our efforts are futile. We feel at times that we are destroyed. But underneath that, we can and will do something to retrieve our agency, our will. This isn't just about advocacy. It's about creating within us, as part of our life's journey, a resolve to build again, to grow again, to tend again, to be again our own Garden of Eden. And this process is like burning the field and creating an environment where growth, where change can happen. Easily said, you say. I agree, it may sound somewhat Pollyannish, but it's not. During a particularly dark period in my life, I found a poem that spoke to me. This poem is the last piece in the book from which this story came. The poem is entitled A Prayer. Refuse to fall down. If you cannot refuse to fall down, refuse to stay down. Lift your heart towards heaven, and like a hungry beggar, ask that it be filled. You may be pushed down. You may be kept from rising, but no one can keep you from lifting your heart toward heaven, only you. It is in the middle of misery that so much becomes clear. The one who says nothing good came of this is not yet listening. In many ways, this poem seems to me to be about agency. My agency to not let obstacles stop my journey. It's also about your agency. In 1997, my life was turned upside down and inside out. It felt as if there was nothing left of who I was. In a 3-month period, I lost myself. First, my mother died. It was not an easy death. I became an orphan. Second, the job I loved was downsized, and I was given a quote-unquote promotion to a job that was not a fit for me. Coming soon after my mother's death, this was jarring. I hated my new cold fish boss, as well as the job. I felt manipulated and depleted. Soon after this, my husband of 16 years, a public figure, was arrested for a crime of which I was unaware. My sense of who I was, who I had loved, was obliterated, shattered. My reason for being, my sense of being part of something was gone. My field was burned to a crisp. I belonged to a small UU congregation in Fremont, California. It was a close-knit group, and most of the congregants supported me during this time. Initially, my depression caused me to push people away. They, however, persisted, and I slowly emerged, wounded but feeling supported. I had a long way to go to become a new person. I felt alone, depleted, and purposeless. This is where I found the poem helpful. I found the resolve to continue, yes, even continue to exist. It was a slow process. It took years to begin to feel a willingness to grow, a willingness to open myself up to a new life. I went through the process of forgiveness. I explored injustice. I began anew in another company, rising in management. I went through tons of therapy. I meditated, I journaled, I worked at digging through that top layer of char and then deeper into wounds that impeded me. Again, I want to emphasize that this metamorphosis took years. Difficult, pain-filled years, yet sometimes joyful. These years led to my leaving business and becoming a UU minister, in part to pay back what had been given to me by my congregation, and in part to feed my newly found soul. I did it with lots of help, but I created a new forest. And I believe that most of you, at one time or another, have done likewise, not using my path, but doing what you needed to do to grow again. Change is a constant. It is natural. After all, we basically replace our skin every 7 years. Like a snake, we need to slough off our old skin so we can transform. Each of our life's journeys are different. No two are the same. However, we all have times when we need to meet the challenges that we feel we cannot meet. I've told you a little of my challenges. I would love to hear your challenges, your resolve, your journeys, but I'm afraid we can't do that today. But I encourage you to share your story, your journey with those you love, with those who are part of your journey. It will be an affirmation of your resolve to overcome the barriers in your life. I'm not a person who believes in miracles, but I am a person who believes in transformation, in rebirth, in new beginnings. Those transformations may be small, incremental, with some regressions, but if we are willing, if we resolve to continue to try, we will grow wiser and stronger in who we are and in what we do. Part of our journey is to become who we are meant to be. But that also means that there will be instability, there will be pain, there will be fire. We may not feel that we are capable. We may feel that we cannot do what we need to do in order to meet our challenges, but we can, we must. We may not begin with hope, but through resolve, we can arrive at hope, joy, and wholeness. I'll end with a poem that I wrote while I was in seminary. I am a river. I flow, large, passive, never, ever the same. My currents run deeply, changing the landscape through my movement, imperceptibly, never, ever the same. I rush seeking the ultimate source, never, ever the same. I plod, growing in understanding, never, ever the same. I swerve off course, losing my sense of destiny, never, ever the same. I plunge and fall, creating havoc and beauty, never, ever the same. I absorb all around me, underneath, over me, accepting the rain, the earth as my sustenance, never, ever the same. I flow, small meanderings, sometimes meaningless, never, ever the same. I am a river, never, ever the same. Please join us now in singing hymn number 95, There's More Love Somewhere. Despite the dark times, despite our sorrows, despite our challenges, we must refuse to fall down. We must lift our hearts filled with resolve and determination. We can renew our own Garden of Eden, our sense of purpose, our souls. So be it, blessed be, and amen. Please join in saying the words that are on the screen as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you, Becky. That was wonderful. It is now time to greet our neighbors. So I now invite you to take as much time as you wish to visit with your friends and visitors in our chat room. To stay online to be put in a chat room, or remain in this main Zoom to join in our discussion with our guest, Reverend Becky. So you might hear some of those stories, Becky. Our worship time has ended, and now our service begins. Go bravely forward in our continued support of a just world. Stay healthy and safe. So may it be.